G'day, it's Pete the Polymath, here again to explain some of the great mysteries of life that can only really be gleaned after studying everything for decades and eventually becoming the wizened old elder. They were the reason why the ancient tribes survived. They stored everything that was of value, culturally and technologically, the knowledge passed on down through the generations. So I want you to like, share and spread this around, because somehow I've looked at the statistics. The last 3,000 people that have seen my site over the videos of the last week, and the 300 new subscribers, I've looked at the analytics, and it's been disturbing. 100% of the people who see my videos are men. 0% are women. I just don't know whether they are just non-educated or something. And also, 0% of people over the age of 55 have seen my videos. Outrageous. Anyway, I promised that I would give you some more of the ancient tribal information. This is not something that I have made up. I'm just working with the numbers that make life work. Now we have to understand these things in terms of, say, evolution and ancestry. It is the way life moves through time, and I've done a video on that in the past as well. Now, the laws of relatedness. Now we have to summarize, we have to generalize in some enormous way, because each of us and each person that's ever existed is an exception to the rules in this sort of sense. But on average, throughout all of human history, the average number of children per couple has been 2 that have managed to reproduce. Now, there's ones that were produced that did not reproduce. There are the ones that died before reproductive age, or never got around to it, didn't form a relationship, or even ones who had children and those children failed to continue. Their children just didn't have children. There's also perhaps people who were gay, people who had some kind of variant that somehow stopped them from having children. Now, if you go back to my video on the laws of ancestry and you study those people 2,000 years ago, you recognise that we come from a gene pool. Although there's the ones that we are directly related to within that gene pool, but we come from this extended gene pool. And it is the commonality of 95% of all their genes. There's only like 5% are considered to be variables that make us look, behave, and smell different. Now, if there's only 2 per generation, then you have 1 sibling. And that sibling, on average, has half of your variables, half your genes, right? And but if we go to cousins, then, right? Now, if each of your parents was from 2 children, and it means that that you have 4 cousins. And each of those cousins is related to you genetically by, and all the way up to being at the top 50%. Now these are crazy kinds of ways of averaging, but this is just the way it all works with the averages. Even with your sibling, those variables, you might share none. You might share all. And then there are some genes that we are showing because they are dominant, and there are other genes that we are hiding because they are recessive. So it's enormously complicated. That's why I'm trying to summarize this thing. Okay, right. Now, 4 cousins. Now, I'm one of a generation. If you add up all the cousins in my whole generation, including my siblings, then there are 32. Right? So things were going really strange back in those days when our parents were having, our uncles and ours were having like 6, 7 children, and then my my grandparents, all of them came from extended, wide, enormous families in Ireland and Cornwall and Wales and stuff like that. And so big families were the way back then. And it's probably the way for even back in the tribal days, because there were just going to be so many children die as babies, like and child diseases and malnutrition and just accidents and infections and like all that kind of stuff. It was quite rare that you actually got to be able to be an adult and then have children, and then those children then be successful. But the average, we just deal with these averages, right? Now, if you go back like 10 generations, so how many 10th cousins would you have in a society that was stable, so the numbers are not increasing? How many 10th cousins would you have? 1 million. Do the numbers. It's 1 million, right? It sounds crazy, but so in Indigenous cultures, it was impossible really to find someone who was not related to you. And I lived in Arnhem Land and met the Aboriginal people up there and worked with them for 7 weeks back in 1985. And I was told like the ideal way to marry up there was to your 5th cousin. Now you could do your 4th or your 3rd, but the closer you got, the more sort of dangerously taboo it was. And you could sort of marry outside that into totally different tribes, but that really had to accord with other kinds of things. And now they were dealing with paternal sort of lines or maternal lines. And if you deal with any Indigenous culture, they are totally obsessed with relatedness. So they have words for everything. They're things that we don't have words for. So words for who your cousin has married, your cousin's family that they married into, and so crazy things like that. All these things because they needed to communicate, because it was very, very important. Because if you marry a 5th cousin, it was an ideal system. It's like a century. You go through these centuries. All the genes that you have go out for an entire century and they come back. And so that's where the natural selection is occurring. It's actually potentially amplifying the things that are of benefit, while simultaneously diluting the things that are not of benefit. And it's also, if you're marrying into the next tribe, as many of our cultures had to do, because that is gene flow, and we require gene flow. It seems like you can't really just have like 180 people in one group and just continue to breed, because it ends up being totally inbred and horrible things end up happening, as we've seen with the Habsburgs and the Pharaohs and all sorts of crazy people, even the British royalties and stuff. So it's important for us always to understand this nature of who we are marrying into, who we are marrying, where our essence as a multicellular creature, as the success, our unbroken success of the lineages that have made us what we are, how we can somehow guarantee that those successes are going to be continued on. Now, it's not a conscious thing that we're doing. It's just like, this is the process that works. We've inherited this system, and that's just the way it works. Now, if you then wonder what happens if every generation actually has 3 children per generation, right? Now, it means that you have 2 siblings, and therefore all that you are genetically that's 100% reproduced, like on average again, 100% is represented in those, and so that's pretty good for you if you have successful genes. Now, it also means like you have to count up your cousins. Like it means that you have 2 sets of uncle aunts on both sides, which means that each of those then has 3 children. So you have 6 cousins this side, 6 cousins that side. So you have 12 cousins instead of the 4 cousins. And so you have 3 times as many. So you're represented to 1.5 times in your first cousin population. Now, if you continue to go out to that crazy like 10th cousin kind of thing again, you find something like 120 million different 10th cousin relationships. which is totally impossible, you know. And that sort of indicates, if you think very carefully about it, it indicates just how powerfully one small mutation, one small correction, one small addition, one small sort of positive change can actually have on the entire destiny of the species, your lineage, your culture, your tribe, those kind of things and stuff. Right. Now, yeah, so think carefully about this, and I want you to not just think about it. You go back to that knowledge, what is knowledge kind of video I made. Like, I've given you information. Now you have to turn that into the various kinds of knowledge. You have to work through it and realise that it's true. Then you have to sort of gain familiarity with that, and you have to sort of then eventually incorporate that within your mindset. So you recognise the value of cousins, and the value of uncles and aunts, and the values of nephews and nieces, and the values of these other people that are filling our communities that are not the breeders. The ones that do the other kind of stuff are still. A society only works when everyone is participating. Everyone is actually trying to keep the whole thing working. It doesn't work if most people think that they don't have to do anything, that the system owes them a living, that they just need to be paid by the government, or they're able to just sit on the street and just beg because, well, there's just bad luck. And like, we need to be motivated to improve ourselves. And of course, one of the things I'm doing in this particular era, this particular sort of saturation of every day putting out another video, just about, as long as my router doesn't keep on playing up, is that I want to be able to sort of deal with the things that cause the world wars that we're going into now. We can see that religion is one of those things. We can see that ignorance is one of those things. We can see that small-minded tribal kinds of thinkings have been somehow amplified to the size of entire countries with millions of people. And we have to break out of that. Otherwise, the whole thing, the whole house of cards falls down. And if that happens, then we don't have the skills to build it up again, then we may have our descendants trying to survive as hunters and gatherers. And we might even lose that. And in religious terms, it'd be cast into the void of extinction for all eternity, as 99.99% of all species have ever done. We're just the ones who have managed to avoid that. And our particular speciality as primates, as mammals, then primates, and then the Homo species sort of stuff, and what it is that we are as humans, our speciality is we understand what it is we are. We understand what we're doing. Now, I want to do other videos soon about things like falling in love and courtship, and those kind of things have to come back, because as far as I can see, they are basically lost. If you can fall in love with an AI on a AI system, or you can fall in love with someone who's trying to scam you from Nigeria you've never met. Or if you can just sort of swipe this one, no, that one, this one, that one. If you are trying to find your ideal match using systems like that, then you are creating some kind of absolute ruin, some random into the whole process of creation and evolution that has caused us to be what we are. You realise what it is I'm trying to say. And look back through all of my videos, going back all 17 years, and see the bizarre, amazing, incredible things I've invented and discovered and tried out and sort of stuff. Like, it has been a wild life, and it's coming to its end. I'll only live to 70 years, I imagine, and that's coming up in 3. If you want to know more about my kind of boomer, there's actually a new terminology that's just like I've just discovered in the last month. And we are Generation Jones. And so look for that, and you'll find some AI who's able to summarise all the things that my generation had and then didn't have, caused and failed to avoid causing. Anyway, that's my spiel, and I hope I've been able to cause you to do a bit of thinking and and hopefully you're old, and hopefully some of you might be female, because I hate to be mansplaining. Is that why they're not here? Anyway, thanks for lasting the distance and being, well, now it's going to be 40% last the distance, which I'm really quite pleased with, because a couple of weeks ago it was only 5% would do that. So thanks for maintaining that curiosity and that interest, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.